Welcome everyone, today we'll have another special rogue build and this time it's a melee rogue. I'm actually really excited about this one because I've been playing and testing this build a lot after the range build, and it was so good I actually keep playing because it's actually so fun. So coming right away to our little teaser about the rogue, what you're going to see is we have really incredible mobility, we travel very fast, we move very fast, and we can skip a lot of bosses, almost one-shotting them. We feel like an assassin and we have really high burst amount of damage. So here we burst one of the elites and the second one disappeared. I was like, come out. And the moment it comes out, we can burst it down so fast. So this build is incredibly good in terms of AoE damage, and the burst damage is also really high. So here you can see burst AoE damage against melee, normal mobs really fast. And I'll show you guys a few of the clips against the elites. So elites, I feel like an assassin. The elites teleport and I follow it, kill it, and then I go. I don't even bother with the other mobs. And here again, I see the elite, shadow step, 2-shot, and this is so fast. Now let me just show you guys me fighting the boss. Of course, I'll show you guys the whole combo in the later stage of the video. So here with my clone, I did a mistake here, I dashed too many times, that actually means some damage. So what you're going to notice is, we actually do a little less damage between the 80% to 35% HP because of our passive. But once the boss gets lower HP, we actually do more damage. And the boss dies in about 5 to 6 seconds, right? And the best thing about this build is that it is incredibly easy to make. You don't need any special codex or anything to find in the open beta, because the only codex that makes this one really powerful is actually this one. So what I have is, this is Flurry, which deals circle around me. Instead of doing it in front of me, this will do circle around me. And this also increases Flurry damage by 16%. And this codex is just found in dungeons. So if you come over to Rogue, press Y and come over to Codex, you can see the offensive codex, there is only one, and that is Flurry. And perfectly we have this one. Of course, you can notice that the roll of Flurry with the codex crafting is very low, 16 out of 30%. Now, big question, right? In case you guys are wondering, how do I have the percentage chart? One of the viewers was very helpful to tell me about this. So come over to settings, go to game, and come over to advanced tooltip. This is for comparison, this is for the information of what you can roll on your legendaries. So let's briefly talk about the highlight and also the focus concept of the build. The build will focus on Flurry, and what we do is, we will be giving us Shadow Imbuement, which allows us to deal vulnerable damage and also burst damage. With the combination of Flurry, which have really high burst damage, because our specialization will be focused on combo point. You must do combo point. This is incredibly high damage with Flurry. Now if you do in the side, it's actually very weak. So make sure you know the difference. Make sure you pick combo points for this build. And I tried both, and that one was so slow and so weak. So the whole combination comes that most of our items actually doesn't require us to have really special codex, and this is the best part. I mean, over here we do have a codex that increases stun enemy damage, which is not bad for my shadow step, and also one for spending energy. But other than that, we're pretty straightforward, nothing special. And I'll go through the item with you guys after the skill tree. So coming over to a skill tree, what you're going to notice for the basic spell, I'm actually picking Puncture. Puncture is actually a little bit of a range spell, and it will be shooting darts at enemies, or blades. So one point into Puncture and also its upgrade. What you're going to find is, Puncture is very good at slow enemies and also provide additional vulnerabilities when we don't have the burst from Flurry. So what that means is, the Puncture itself will throw 3 blades, slowing enemies, making them vulnerable, and also you gain energy when they're crowd controlled, and we will be crowd controlling them a lot with that. Now, I did test different build with the basic spells, and it seems like Puncture gives us the most utility, because most of your characters will have a bonus damage to slow enemies, and if you can consistently slow enemies, you'll have a lot more damage. So here I'll show you guys quickly. To slow enemies, I deal 31% more damage, and I deal 47% more damage to vulnerable enemies, and this is actually really powerful. Now our core skill will be Flurry, of course, and with Flurry with combo points, it deals a lot damage. And we'll go into the upgrade for Flurry, which spread the vulnerability. You do notice I have 6 points in Flurry. This is because one of my items was picked to give me more Flurry points. As we keep going, you're gonna see that I have picked into Shadow Step and also Dash, for 2 reasons: very fast mobility and also the increase of critical damage and also critical chance with one of the passives. I also picked that my Shadow Step will stun enemies. This is because one of my items you're going to see, which we talked about earlier, provide me with 36% more damage multiplier when I stun enemies. If you don't have any stun bonus damage, you might not have to pick the stun. You can pick the lower cooldown reduction as well. Both are really good. And the Shadow Step is really good at engaging elites that's massive, engaging elites that teleports, and also just, travel fast to the enemy. Now over here, I will be picking into 3 points into Exploit. What that means is we'll deal 18% more damage. And on top of all the bonus damage we have, this is one of the reasons when we fight the boss, we'll actually do more damage when the build is above 80% HP and below 35% HP. So once we go into the showcase at the end of the video, you'll see the difference in damage. So coming over to the imbuement spell, we'll be going in Shadow Imbuement, and going with 5 levels of Shadow Imbuement give us a massive burst of AoE shadow damage, and this also provides us with increased more critical chances against injured enemies. So this again means that we want enemy to be below 35% HP. We'll also provide vulnerability with the Shadow Burst damage, and this will work wonderfully for more damage, because we have like 40 plus bonus damage, right? And finally, only 1 point into the ultimate for Shadow Clone. I'm picking this one because this is the most beneficial for 1 point skill. And in terms of everything else, the passive, everything is pretty good. As for the Shadow Clone, I only use this one pretty much for the boss. Everything else, I kill them very fast. And in case you guys are wondering, why don't we go into 2 points into the passive for the Shadow Clone, is that those 2 points spent here equals about 12% bonus damage over here. And I don't think those 2 points give us 12% bonus damage, especially when I don't use the Shadow Clone a lot. So this is pretty long cooldown spell, and 60 seconds at the moment, it's a really good burst against the boss. Now in case you guys are wondering, almost all of my gears for the Rogue were crafted by myself with the Codex. So if you have a look at the extract section, anything that is not highlighted, anything that is grey, that means those were crafted myself. So I crafted the weapons, the rings, a lot of items. So if you guys do want to know how to craft the best installed weapons and best installed gears for your character, make sure you check out that previous build. So I have the link available for you guys and also the link on top. So the crafting was very fun and it's really good. I can plan multiple builds and do a lot of damage and also have a lot of utility. Now coming over to our gears, what I want to do is let's talk about the Codex first, then we talk about the passives, and also we talk about the stats for the weapon choice and also the slots on the sockets. So as for the Codex, our biggest offensive Codex will be Flurry. You want this to be AoE, you also want this to have increased damage. Make sure you craft this item onto your two-handed weapon, which is your bow, and this will give you the double stats. Otherwise this will only give 8%, so I'll show you guys over here. So this is the biggest thing, and because you can find this one in the dungeon, this makes this build very accessible and it's very powerful for the melee rogue. So this is over here, and this is 8%, right? We crafted over here with the two-handed weapon for 16%. If you guys haven't seen a crafting build, make sure you check it out, because this teaches you how to craft items and how to make them stronger. Now coming over to my melee weapons, one of my melee weapons will give me increased damage to stun enemies, and stun enemies for away from me. And the second weapon will provide me with bonus damage when I have high energy. Those are pretty decent for attack, and I can also go with offensive stats on the particular gloves. Now my gloves is actually pretty passive. This is actually a defense stats, provides me with smoke grenade and also dash cooldown. Makes me move faster and also disable enemies. Now the rest of my Codex is actually very similar to the previous rogue, which is the range rogue. I'll have increased crowd control spreading to enemies, and when enemies are vulnerable, they will be dazzled. So notice my defensive and offensiveness is actually bound together. When enemies are vulnerable, they get dazzled, and then they can't hit me. I also have my barbarian item which heals me when I'm next to enemies, and also I have damage reduction when I normal attack enemies, which happens a lot as I go with the combos with you guys. And finally, we do have Cutthroat skill damage increase. So a lot of your mini spells will be called Cutthroat. So let me show you guys over here. So Shadow Step is a Cutthroat spell. You can see on this side, right? And similarly, your Dash is also a Cutthroat spell. And of course, your Flurry is Cutthroat. So if you can get the stats Cutthroat damage increase, this is a really good multiplier. And over here you can see we have a 5.5% bonus damage for this one. And we did have the trap skill damage rolled because I was building the rogue for this one, but it's good enough. And here you do want to get critical damage, critical chance, lucky hit chance, and those are very good for us. And of course, you want close range damage bonus. So this is not bad, this is actually my barbarian's item. And finally, you see close damage bonus, critical chance, critical damage. The damage over time, I couldn't roll that off, so it's okay. So you can see the choices, and you can also see that the codex are not that important. Now, one of the codex over here does provide me with more energy when basic attack the elite, which is actually not bad to give me a little burst of energy to cast more flurry. Now, I thought I added over here for this particular ring, so the ring I was talking about, what you can do is you could imprint this codex from the dungeon as well. So let me show you guys over here, press Y, come over to dungeons and show everything. And if we come over to resource, it is the one over here. So this one is actually really decent for the rogue to get energy. And if you're crafting, make sure you craft this one from the utility section of the codex from the dungeons. Now it happens that I did talk about the choice of stats. So the stats, you want increased vulnerability damage, you do want a bit of damage to slowed enemies, which is actually not bad because you will be slowing them with your puncher. Very good passive. And over here you can see that I want damage to close enemies, but happen to have distance enemies. And over here we have a bit of damage to close enemies and also slowed enemies. As to the stats of the gears, what you really want to find is also increased shadow imbuement damage or shadow imbuement rank. So shadow imbuement is +1 over here. And I do believe I have another +1 over here. Yeah, over here with the gloves, you want to find flurry +1. And this is for rogue only. You can see that we can only roll +1 to this rank, and those are pretty important. So make sure you try to look for those, and those, crafted will give you more stats and also more damage. Now, some other stats like attack speed, critical chance, critical damage will also be really good, because the faster you attack, the more combo points you get, the more damage you'll do. Now let's briefly go over the choice of gems. I actually don't have some really good gems for this one, to be honest. I should have went with crowd control enemies, increase my critical damage, and I'll show you guys over here. So what I mean is, we have a lot of good slows and also controls. So +6% critical strike damage to crowd control enemies is better than my ultimate damage bonus. Initially I thought I would do a lot of damage with ultimate, right? But turns out it's a bonus icing on the cake. It's not the major factor. So if you ask me now, I'll go with the Sapphire. And Sapphire will provide with more critical damage. And we do control enemies a lot with Daz because of the combination of using more vulnerability and also Daz. Now, in the case you don't have those kind of codex, it is okay as well. Don't worry too much, because this is the bonus, right? Now, as for the socketing of the gears and for armor, you can go with maximum HP, you can go with increased healing if you have any form of healing, especially my chest piece, or you can go with Thorn. I went with Thorn just for a little more damage. And in terms of socketing your accessories, I always recommend coming over here to see what you are missing at this moment. At the moment, I am missing a lot of the resistance to lightning resistance. So if I could, I'll socket into lightning resistance, and also I'll socket for fire resistance. So we fill up the weakest link. Now coming over to the fun part, where we get to showcase all the skill combination and how the whole build comes together. What you're going to see is we have 2 stacks of dash. Together with evade, we actually travel a lot faster. And I just want to show you guys the mobility of this build. You can also be gap closing with your shadow step, and this makes your super mobile super fast. So this is the first teaser about this. I'll show you guys the mobility. You can dash with double CD, you can shadow strike, you can evade, and all of a sudden you travel super fast. Now, while engaging into enemies, what you want to do is, you want to spend a little time before you find enemies. Usually you can see the icon. Before you engage enemies, you can buff yourself with Shadow Imbuement a little before, so it goes on cooldown a little faster. And that's what I did notice, a 7-second on cooldown. And what you also want to do is, you want to group enemies together to deal massive explosion damage. I was a little impatient, so I didn't do that. So here I kind of wish to wait for enemies, right? But we deal really big damage and we killed fast. One thing you also want to keep in mind is, you always want to left click and right click at the same time. So your normal attack will slow enemies, make them vulnerable, while give you combo points for bonus damage and also attack speed. This is really important, because your normal attack give you basic spell, combo points, and this is spent onto your core spell. So I'll show you guys over here. What you can see is, this is the one, right? The combo point specialization. You can see that with combo points, 1 combo point will give us bonus damage, and 3 combo point gives us bonus 58% damage. And also we'll be having the bonus of attack speed for 45%. And this is actually incredibly good. So make sure, guys, you use this combination. If you don't have the combo points correctly made, and if you don't normal attack, you will be doing about 500 damage. If you do this correctly, you do 880, and also you have 45 attack speed. And everything pretty much falls smoothly, right? And what you're going to see here is, one of the spells I have is going to be Shadow Step. What that means is, if enemy elites teleport or if you want to get close to enemies, you just shadow step onto them. By stunning them, we also deal more damage. And you also appear behind them, right? And once I stun them, I just finish them off within 2 seconds. So this is a really good combination, and against most normal mobs, we just AoE them. And with one shadow imbuement, they don't really last long. One shot they all dies. It's a really good burst damage build. Again, you can see here, I'm saving my shadow step when the elite teleports. The moment it teleports, I shadow step and stunned, and then I finish off with one burst and everything dies. I loot the item that I quickly travel by, so I'm really fast. So again, we shadow step, and then we shadow imbuement, and then we AoE with flurry, and they all dies. And the more enemies there are, the more damage you do, because flurry does AoE damage. Now finally, as for the skill combinations for the boss, I'm trying to figure this out, but I also thought about new ways. So one thing to keep in mind, we do bonus damage to boss before they get to 80% HP. We also do bonus damage to boss after he gets to 35% HP. The only time we don't do bonus damage is when he's not injured and he's not healthy. And this is between 80 to 35%. What I thought is, I can hit the boss a little bit, get the boss down to 80%, then I cast my Shadow Clone, and then I burst down at my weakest point of the HP, and then I finish them off when they're injured. But you can see in the replay here, I just did a Shadow Clone. I didn't think that much. So here what I do is I did a Shadow Clone, now I do my dash. Once you do the Shadow Step, you also get bonus critical chance. And once you do the dash, you also get bonus critical strike damage, so keep in mind. And I want to do more damage, so I started doing dashes. This is actually really bad, because I dashed away, and then I don't do damage right, so this is very awkward. So notice that we did a really high damage at the first 20%, and now this is a low peak. During your low peak, you just want to do damage. Always normal attack followed by your core spell. Notice I'm constantly getting my combo point, constantly slowing enemies and making them vulnerable. This is quite important during your low point. And then once they get below 35%, you kill them super fast over here. And it didn't take us long. And we're quite durable because of the defensive items. And that's pretty much right. So it's a really fun build. And if you guys haven't tried it and you want to play Rogue, definitely recommend trying this out, because I had a really good time. I keep playing after testing and recording because it's such a fun build. It's so fast, so mobile, and so much damage. Everything dies. And I feel like I'm doing PvP. The enemy teleports, I predict where he's gonna go. Now I stun lock him. I'll just show you guys a little bit. It's actually really fun. I think this will be really good for PvP as well. Lots of stuns, dashes, and burst damage. Now before you go, and if you guys didn't know, we have a new YouTube channel. So I just started a YouTube channel with my girlfriend yesterday, and you can see this is only 12 hours old, this YouTube channel. And if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and check out the behind the scenes and also fun clips and also more stories about us. And then you get to know me a little more personally instead of just reading the news and also the games, right? So I want to share a little bit more with you guys. So make sure you check this channel out if you're interested about Matt and also Uni. She's really funny too, and she's really shy. So I want to give her a surprise and do a shout out for the new channel to get some subscribers. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time.